All right. And we're live. Hello, everyone. Let me go ahead and check settings really fast. Let me see. That looks good. Audio looks good. All right. Looking awesome. If there are, or if you do notice any buffering or any audio issues, anything like that, usually just refreshing will do the trick. But we are doing, hey guys, hello, welcome. And we're going to go ahead and jump on in since I know we are running a bit behind schedule. Appreciate your guys' patience. So usually I like to give it a moment, but I know people will come in at their discretion. We've already got about 50 people in here and a lot of questions, lots and lots of questions. And just from first glances, these are really good. I'm excited. So just go ahead and jump on in. Welcome, everyone. Happy Sunday. I hope everyone is having a fantastic weekend so far. And thank you for being here for another rendition, another round of live Q&As where we hang out, we talk about the law, talk about conscious manifestation so that you can take these teachings and apply them to your life in the best way possible. Just a couple quick things to announce. Number one, I want to thank everybody so much for your amazing feedback on the Neville lecture series. That seems like a lot of people got a lot out of it, and that makes me so happy to hear. So thank you, thank you. We went through the 5 lessons and the bonus Q&A session. For those of you who not seen it yet, I will be making that into a playlist today. But I do also plan on continuing with this trend, since it is a lot of people have reached out and said that it's been really helpful for them in having a better breakdown and understanding of his teachings. So the next Neville Decoded series is going to be reading and reviewing Feeling is the Secret, which is the book that I recommend for people if you have not read any of Neville's books before. It's a very short read. It's out of all of his books that have been published, it's, in my opinion, the most straightforward. So definitely keep eyes out for that announcement when we will dive into that. Also, the waitlist for one-on-one coaching opened yesterday. So if you are interested in more information, you can definitely check in the description box. And for those who signed up yesterday, and have not received an email yet with more information, that will be going out this afternoon. So keep eyes out for a welcome email. And I believe that was everything. That was everything. Yeah. So without further ado, let's jump in and ask some questions. Welcome, you guys. All right. Hi, Missy. Lately, I often have dreams about myself, my SP, other people, as the way I scripted them to be instead of the way they're in 3D. In my dream, I think and act from my new self-concept and seem to unrealize the 3D circumstances. Is this a good sign? Does this mean I'm printing my new self-concept onto my subconscious mind and removing my old self-concept? That is a fantastic indication. Yeah. If we want to look for signs, we want to look for how we are feeling, our reactions, and our dreams. Our dreams do give us a lot of insight as to what we are internalizing, what is going on beneath the conscious surface, especially things that we may not be aware of in our day-to-day. And so if you're noticing in your dreams that things are playing out in the way that you've intended and the way that you find most desirable, then yes, absolutely keep going and continue to maintain the faith that once imprinted, you will see it outpictured. Just keep in the faith of that. Victoria, hello. Hi, Missy. What if when I say, isn't it wonderful, while in meditation, I don't feel anything? This is normal. And this is normal. And at first, we may not feel anything right away. Um, it can take some just letting yourself, you know, enjoy that relaxed state, get into that, as relaxed of a state as possible, and then just focus on that, what would it feel like if everything was exactly the way that you wanted it to be? You know, it does take sometimes a bit for the feeling or the initial response to that to start to come up for you. This is normal. And if that has been the case, then we want to continue with it until inevitably we will start to get lost in that and the feeling will start to emerge. It will happen. Mystical has a really good question. Hey Missy, how come people say they gave up on their desire? They gave up and then their desire happens 6 months later and they're seen. Wouldn't that be perception of doubt if they give up? Why do they still get their desire? This is a really good question. And it's actually a fairly common phenomenon that once we give up, it happens. It then happens. And the the short answer is because we're not focused anymore on the lack. We're not fixated on where is it going to show up, when is it going to show up, how's it going to show up. Like we're not focused so much on the absence of our desire. When we give up, it is in effect a form of detachment. So we're no longer letting ourselves go back and forth and be double-minded or focus on the lack or absence of that desire. So basically, they left that impression and then it outpictured because they were no longer thinking of it in terms of separation. That being said, I don't recommend that people go this route naturally. It doesn't take giving up in order to see things outpictured and see your manifestation come to pass. Um, just because it is one form of detachment, it's not one that I naturally recommend. But this is a fairly common phenomenon because we're no longer focused on the state of lack. Yeah. Let me see. Where was my spot? Hi, Missy. I just want some assurance. I just got another setback and I just feel so frustrated and wavering. Oh, oh, Tammy, I am so sorry. I know how incredibly frustrating it feels when something happens in the 3D, something appears in the 3D that was not intended, and feels like a setback. What we want to remember about our present 3D circumstance is that it's all old news. It's all old state. It's the outpicturing of what we had imagined and impressed yesterday, a week ago, a month ago. So we're so conditioned to 3D circumstances that it's very challenging to not be affected by it. And I'm not saying to not be affected by it. If you need to give yourself a moment and you know feel your feelings, and that's fine. That's fine. We certainly don't want to suppress everything, or try to bury it. What I recommend is making sure that you revise once you are able to. Once you are in a place where perhaps you feel maybe a bit more centered, maybe a bit more grounded after some time has passed, and you've sort of worked through this initial setback internally. Be sure to revise it. Be sure to revise it, because if it's not the end result that we desire, we don't accept it as final. We don't accept it as final. And if nothing else, I know it can be challenging to do so, but we want to see, for the things that happened that are not ideal, we can still use that to our advantage to see how it manifested, right? So if we can see the correlation between perhaps we were fearful of this thing, perhaps we've been in a fearful state, and then we can start to see how things outpicture and why they outpicture in the way that they do. Basically, it becomes a way that we can build more faith. You know, finding a silver lining in the outcome, but ultimately make sure that you do not accept this as final. It's all old crap. It has no bearing on what is possible for you. Yeah. So many new faces today. Welcome. Welcome to those of you who are new. Hi, Missy. What's your advice on how to manifest consciously more consistently? I'm having trouble manifesting bigger things. hmm This is usually where we tend to have most difficulty. You're not alone in that. You're not alone in that. It can seem easy to manifest these so-called smaller things or notice the less significant things come to pass. And that's due to our attachment. It's due to when we have something significant that we really desire, all of the weight and gravity that is tied with that leaves us feeling very scared to trust the process. Basically, we feel like there's a constant need for that reassurance and confirmation or validation from the 3D. So it can produce a lot of double-mindedness. You're not alone in this. What we can do to help us with that, I mean, the point of these teachings, as far as applying the law is concerned, is learning how to use your imagination, exercise your imagination muscle to help you capture more and more of the feeling state and get more familiar with that. That should be objective no matter what. No matter what we desire in the 3D, this is first and foremost about the change in self, the change in how we feel. So, really, the biggest things are, finding a way of imagining, a method, exercise, technique, a way of imagining that resonates most with you, that feels most natural to you. Utilize that in the moments where you are able to do so. Take advantage of those windows before bed and in the morning. And overall, just be observant and revise anything that you do not want. Anything that happened in the day that was not ideal. Make that a daily practice. So I know that was a lot, but find a method that helps you to resonate with the feeling of your desire. Make sure that you are observant in the day to day and revise anything unwanted. Yeah. Hello, is it true we will get our manifestation even if we don't leave an impression? Nothing can stop it. No matter how much we doubt, it must come true at some point. um, is it true we'll get our manifestation? Eh, I would say yes and no if I'm understanding the question correctly. To be very clear right off the bat, there is no such thing as failing at this. You cannot fail, as in, mess up so bad that, that it's impossible to see it now, right? That you can always, from where you are right now, see the change that you desire to see. You can always see things outpictured. It's impossible to ruin it beyond recognition or anything like that. However, I would not go far as to say that we don't need to leave an impression. Nothing can stop it, and no matter how much we doubt. Neville would say that doubt is the only force great enough to disrupt the seed planted, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but doubt is doubt and double-mindedness are the things that we are actively practicing this so that we overcome our doubts, so that we overcome double-mindedness, right? If the objective is ultimately the change in self and the change in our beliefs and assumptions, it's for that purpose, so that we are no longer doubting. Also, where faith building comes very important in this practice and in these teachings. Um, so I, I don't know if people are teaching that to be the case, that um, but we definitely want to be as single-minded as possible. That's not to say you can never ever doubt. That's not to say you can never ever waver. But the way that you're describing it, I wouldn't go that far either. Ultimately, it becomes practice with continuing of going to that desired state until it is subconscious and natural for you, until you are no longer wavering and doubting. Yeah. But no matter what, we can absolutely create the change. Even if we mess up, even if we are doubting or double-minded, we can get ourselves back to that state. We can still manifest no matter what. I hope that made sense, and I hope I understood the question. Yeah. Double-mindedness has been my biggest sticking point. Yeah, yeah. That is the sticking point for most people. Mhm. Again, you're not alone. Where was my spot? Hi, Missy. Could you please explain the 3D, 4D, 5D in manifesting? What does each term actually refer to? I've seen so many people talking about them all differently, and now I got confused. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we all know what the 3D is. I take it. Obviously, our three-dimensional physical world that runs along the track of linear time, or appears to run along the track of linear time. Everything is in a series of events out here. 4D is in reference to your inner world. So that's the world of imagination, where there is no time. There are no limitations. You know, whereas out here it may seem like obstacles. There are no limitations or obstacles in your imagination. 5D is not a term that Neville used that I can think of, that I can remember. Um, I don't recall him talking about 5D. He mentions thinking fourth dimensionally a lot. So, I mean, the most important ones that I would keep in mind is 3D is your physical world, 4D is the world of your imagination. hmm That's your inner world, your inner state where all things exist. Hi, Missy. My exam just got over. Can I revise and say that I have written my exams well and that I am the topper, because in reality I haven't written them well? Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. If you're not thrilled with how well you did on your exams, you can absolutely revise, and I would 100%. Hi, Missy. I've been on this journey for some years now. I don't discuss it with friends because none of them believe in the law. It makes me feel isolated sometimes. Did you experience something similar? I did. I did. Yeah, and I know it can feel really isolating, when we don't know anybody, in our close circle of people, our friends or family members who also believe in the law. Um, yeah, and it can also make it feel a bit more difficult, because sometimes it helps to have somebody that we can, you know, be encouraging with, and help each other and inspire each other, that kind of a thing. And just, I guess, if it feels like, if you desire to have people in your life to talk to, that could be something that you can turn into an imaginal act and allow yourself to experience, the feeling of being supported, in all of this, having somebody you can talk to about the law. That would be something that is something that I did. And it's something that, if you are feeling, lonely, and like you want people that are close to you and that you can confide things in, I would construct the imaginal act and make it so. Yeah. Mm. Angel Jacks. I'm trying to make sure I understand your question correctly, but it's good. I hear it will come. I hear that it will come at its own appointed hour and when you least expect it. But when I expect with an unshakable faith and conviction when it will come, it's pretty much on time. Please explain. Um, yeah, I mean, what you're describing is correct. Yeah. When we have that unshakable faith and conviction, it always shows up on time. So exactly planned, it perfectly unfolds at the right exact hour. And that's basically what the appointed hour means, that everything will happen perfectly on time, whatever that looks like for you. So that there may be some confusion there, or maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but what you described, um, with that unshakable faith and conviction, your desires come on time, is, yeah, it shows up at the appointed hour. Yeah, but if I'm misunderstanding, let me know. Hi, Missy. How do you see SP prioritizing? How do I see my SP prioritizing me? I want him to make plans with me and not always his adult kids. I know it's 3D reflecting me. Do I see him in imagination and prioritizing me? See you one to one soon. I'm looking forward to seeing you too soon. You too, Fran. Yes, yes. It sounds like I know when we are dealing with somebody in the 3D, that tends to take our front and center. That tends to be where we have most reaction. We're more reactive and responsive to the 3D and what they're doing in the 3D than what they're doing in imagination. We want to really practice centering ourselves in imagination, and practice feeling it as real as we possibly can, because that is absolutely where everything starts. See, imagine a scene that would be him taking you out somewhere lovely for an anniversary, or just doing something nice for you because he wants to, whatever that looks like for you. But when you imagine, treat it as though it is a reality that you experienced, not as something that you're waiting to happen in the future. And that's a huge distinction that we all need to learn, because what you're imagining is real. It's not fantasy, it is real. But yeah, disentangling yourself from the 3D is without question one of the biggest challenges that we have here. But with practice, as you become more and more familiar and feel into that real state and imagination more and more, you're going to naturally be more detached from the 3D, and specifically the old version of them. If they show up a certain way, you're not going to be moved by it. Yeah. Marie, hello. Hello, beautiful. Good morning. How to keep the faith when nothing desired manifests. Neville spoke of testing the law, but what if every test fails? Thank you. Oh, I know. I know that this one can seem challenging too. Neville does talk a lot about faith, the importance of building faith, because otherwise we're kind of at the mercy. We're just at the mercy of our fears and doubts, and the old shadows being outpictured. So how to keep the faith when nothing desired manifests. So we want to be we want to make sure that we are being keenly observant and aware in the day to day. It's something that I talk about all the time because it's easy for us to forget. It's easy for us to just go back into autopilot and not even be aware of the things that we're entertaining and ruminating on and mulling over. And then when it outpictures, we're not making the connection between our inner and outer world, because that is the law at the end of the day. The law states that whatever we are internalizing, giving our attention to, and believing and assuming to be real is what becomes outpictured. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, doesn't ultimately matter. It's what we are identifying with. So if I am observing what I'm doing in here and what is taking place out here, I'm going to quickly realize there are a lot of parallels, that the relationship it's too uncanny to be able to continue to call it coincidence. So that is really, for myself, that was the best way of building my faith. Because here's the thing, sometimes we may try to manifest small things, and that's fine to do so, because the idea is we don't have attachment to those small things, so we're not going to get hung up on it. However, we do tend to have an attachment to the idea of manifestation, the concept of manifestation, and really, really wanting this to be true and wanting this to be real. So even with the small things that we try to manifest, we start looking for them and we start becoming aware of the absence of them. Where is it? Why haven't I seen anything yet? Why has nothing out pictured? From that state, I mean, that is explicitly a state that says, I don't have it. I don't see it, which is only going to outpicture more of the same, more not seeing, more not having. So if we are going to test with small things, we have to be able to genuinely set it and forget it. If that feels too challenging to do so, then I recommend a better route to take is just purely observing the relationship between your inner world and your outer world, and seeing the relationship, which you will see it. There is no denying it when we become more observant. Yeah. You guys are hilarious. I love it. Let me see, where was that spot? Hi, Missy. How do you get yourself out of a slump when you feel hopeless that you will ever manifest your SB? Uh, I know. I know. I trust me when I say I've been there. Um, it may be, if you're feeling like you're in a slump, I mean, the first thing that we want to do is let ourselves process what we're feeling and, help ourselves out of that slump, to the other side of it as quickly as possible, without trying to push or suppress anything. But basically, if you need to give yourself a moment to just focus on other things, focus on you, focus on your well-being, on feeling better, whatever that looks like for you, that's what I would be centering on. That's where I would be placing my attention. Um, I know it can feel incredibly disheartening and disappointing. That's all fear talking. That's all, our old doubts and disbelief, and it's all noise, but it feels very real to us. So I'm certainly not dismissing it, but it is noise. So the first thing that we have to do always is prioritize ourselves, prioritize our well-being. So that means doing whatever you need to do for you right now to process this and move yourself through this so that you can ultimately direct yourself back to a more desirable state. Missy, when you visited another world, you had great interactions and even brought back a ring. What I worry about is if someone could commit an act of violence against me, will it affect me here? Oh, and I mean I completely understand the fear behind that, but we also want to be very mindful of what we are letting ourselves entertain, because ultimately, who decides? Who is the operant power in your reality, right? So if that is a fear, I would first allow myself to work through that. Really focus on instilling an impression, the belief around safety, that you are safe, that others always respect you, others always treat you with kindness and generosity, whatever that looks like for you. Because we can entertain all of the what if hypothetical scenarios that are not ideal, but I don't recommend that. I don't I don't recommend it. Yeah. Hi, Missy. My partner is 8 years younger than me. How can I overcome my doubts that he might be better off with someone his age, with whom he could have children, etc.? Good question. And that sounds like some societal conditioning going on there, which is understandable, especially as a woman. It's been beaten into us from a young age that we have like an expiration date, or at a certain point we're no longer good enough, which is dumb, which is so dumb. But nonetheless, it feels very real for us. So, I mean, the first thing is seeing that this is just societal conditioning. This is all an old assumption. It doesn't make it real. It doesn't make it fact, because there is already a state of consciousness, a reality where you and your person are together and he is over the moon about you. He wouldn't trade it for anything or anyone ever. That already exists because everything exists. So a lot of this is recognizing 99% of what we have been taught is conditioning. It's not true. It's not real. It's not fact. Yeah. And as you continue to build your faith in the law, that is going to become more and more apparent to you. Hmm. Sarah, hello. I feel like I'm being called to Carl Jung's The Red Book, as I feel like I need to start fresh and take a brand new approach to achieve my goal. Have you read it? Any thoughts on it? Thanks. Um, I have read some of Carl's work before. I don't know if I've read The Red Book. If I have, it's been years. I do recommend. I do always recommend the idea of Carl Jung, and getting into human philosophy, human psychology goes hand in hand with these teachings, right? At the end of the day, a lot of this is to do with our self-concept, our beliefs, and our assumptions. So there's a lot of really, really important information that we can glean from Carl Jung and the like, just in human patterns and behavior and why we do the things that we do. Yeah, yeah. And if you're feeling moved to it, I would follow that call. Regarding your Neville lectures, whenever I get a desire, can I just accept it as already done and go about my life? Thank you so much for the series. Oh, you are so welcome. You are so welcome. Yes, yes. To answer your question simply, yes. Whenever we have a desire, we can accept it as already done and go about our life. It is that simple. In theory, it is that simple. Not always that easy, but yes. It is the acceptance of our desires as already being done for us. And I'm going to be coming out with a video talking more about it's already done, because I know that gets people really, really hung up when we say it's already done. But clearly the 3D is showing us the opposite. It tends to put us in a tailspin, and I get that. So I am going to be coming out with a video breaking that aspect down some more so that there is better clarification. Because ultimately, yes, once you accept it as yours and done, you can drop it and go about your life. And so long as you maintain that assumption, you walk in that assumption, it has to harden into fact. Mm-hmm. Well, Elise, I'm still having great difficulty with SATs. No matter what I do, even during the daytime, sitting up, I fall asleep. This is normal. This is normal. I know it's not what we want to hear. I know it can feel frustrating, and we'll definitely talk about this more when we meet next. Um, and also, I'm more than happy to reach out and send you a message. But with SATs, it is a practice, truly. And what happens a lot of times is, if after a couple days, a couple weeks, like we start to get really impatient and frustrated with ourselves, which is once again normal. But and that's not to say that we have to be perfect at this. Like, if relaxing in the drowsy state and just a feel good state is helpful for you, then we want to be also applying that, right? At the end of the day, it is about the feeling. But for me, at least, I can only speak for myself personally. SATs was a hell of a practice to really get the hang of it and not fall asleep too soon, not, just immediately drop down into being unconscious and waking up the next morning frustrated. This is normal. Even Neville mentions it. Even Neville talks about it. Yeah. Yeah. But we will discuss that in more detail if you would like. Absolutely. Manifested SP back in love in a new relationship. Then another breakup. Now, 1 year after the second breakup, seeing each other again, but he says that he does not want to be in a relationship. Oh, Mariana, I know that roller coaster sounds very familiar. Sounds very familiar to what I experienced too. Um, and this is why I stress the importance about observing how we are feeling, what we are assuming, and really placing the focus on changing us, not the 3D. I know that we're all here because we want the 3D to change. But most importantly, this is about the change in our self-concept. If we want to see a permanent change, if we want to see something more than a temporary rearrangement of the surfaces, then this is about really focusing on changing our concept into being the person we desire to be, the version of us who feels confident, prioritized, adored, respected, safe, secure, whatever that looks like for you. But where I emphasize this so much is because that is what determines your dominant state, determines the events that happen predominantly in your life. So I would be mindful of your mental diet. I would be mindful of, are you noticing a lot of fearful thoughts? Are you noticing apprehension that this is just going to repeat itself? History is going to repeat itself? Things like that. Just things that we want to be mindful of. Yeah. But focus on you first. Excuse me. Excuse me. And I'm sorry if the internet's been a little wonky. When changing your self concept, what can it mean if you are feeling, acting, and behaving differently, notably with more courage, but you aren't seeing any manifestations happening? No SP movement. Thank you. Good question, John. Also, hello. Good to see you again, sir. Um, what do we do if we're noticing a change in self but not seeing movement? Continue to turn your focus to the how you want to feel. Continue to focus. I know we're going to find ourselves noticing the 3D, obviously. There's no real escaping that, but we don't want to like let ourselves fixate on that too much. Like we can be aware of something without attachment to it. And that's the idea here of getting ourselves to a place where we really are not shaken or moved by whatever is happening in the 3D. Whether or not there is movement happening does not ultimately matter. Because it was there was a gap between when I reached the Sabbath and when things did finally outpicture. There was, I mean, I want to say it was at least a handful of weeks, a month, month and a half or longer. So there was a period where it seemed like nothing was happening. We have to stop like focusing on that though. I really got to stop focusing on that. Yeah. If you're noticing that a continued change within yourself, that's the gauge. That's what we are prioritizing right now above anything else. Is blocking your SP in the 3D to heal going to delay your manifestation? Not inherently. Mm-mm. Nope. Nope. If anything, it can be helpful to not continue to interact with the old 3D story. I had to do that. I had to put some distance, some 3D distance, so that I wasn't consistently triggering myself over and over again. That's not to say that you need to do that, but we tend to have a fear that if I'm not consistently talking to them or seeing them, then they're going to go away. That's not true. That's not inherently true. Not at all. Hi, Missy. How and when to revise multiple past events, and how can we stay in alignment during our waking hours without feeling we are consciously trying to stay positive? Uh, yeah, that last part is exhausting. We can drop that, by the way. We can. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just being aware of how you're feeling, and when you can, where you can, redirecting. But trying to force a positive feeling is not the objective here. Not at all. And in fact, a lot of times that can add to more stress and anxiety and more things that we don't want. But how and when to revise multiple past events. So the beauty of revision is it is incredibly versatile, which means that there's several different ways that we can approach it. Um, Different ways that we can apply it. As far as revising multiple events, you could make a list of the things that you want to revise, things that you know that you want to revise, and then just go down that list whenever you have moments to do so. We can revise at any time of the day, really. It doesn't ultimately matter, whatever works best for us. Or we can construct a whole new memory that would imply multiple things were different. And definitely check out, I believe it was my last video on revision, where I go and I went into more detail about that, about You can basically create, because memories are just imaginal acts. At the end of the day, it's an imaginal act like anything else. So, if you suffered a lot of setbacks because you had low self-esteem in middle school or high school, you can construct a memory of being somebody who was very confident and outgoing, somebody who had a tight circle of friends that were always there for you, right? Which would absolutely help shape and mold things differently if it were. But check out the video that I made about revision. I believe it was the last one that I made a few weeks back, maybe a couple months back at this point. But yeah, there's different ways to go about it. Um, and we stay in alignment during our waking hours as we continue to revise, as we continue to go to the end. We don't need to force ourselves to try to stay in a positive state. Again, if we are going to the end and feeling into that state that we desire to experience, if we continue to allow ourselves to occupy that in imagination as though it were real in the 3D, you're going to find yourself naturally feeling different in your day to day. You're going to notice naturally that the thoughts change. You're no longer reacting from that old state. So we do not need to try to like micromanage ourselves in the day to day hours. That gets exhausting really quickly. So, yeah. Good morning, Jackie. Happy Sunday from the Netherlands. Happy Sunday to you. Good evening to you. Hi, Missy. Now I'm just practicing sats every day and patience. Overall, doing great, but still a little impatient. Yeah, yeah, I would say most of us probably feel impatience at some point or another on this journey, um, which is you know, it's a good skill to have. It's a good skill to learn. What we want to notice though, when we are feeling impatient in those moments where we feel like it's not happening fast enough, it needs to hurry up, anything like that, we want to take that as indication that at least in that moment, we're not in the right state, that we're not in the state that we want to be in. So that's feedback for us that we want to redirect. Again, not by force, but that we want to help ourselves to direct our attention back to the state of the wish fulfilled. Yeah. Impatience is a big one. The question needs to be put in 4 or 5 parts in regard. Hi, Missy. Manifesting money. How did you break through your money limitations? I saw a video, but wanted to see if you could elaborate. By the way, love the series. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed the series. Yay. Yay. Money manifestation. Yeah, I haven't made a video talking about money in a while. Admittedly, I need to do that. um, the biggest thing, I would say the biggest change for me happened when I stopped focusing on money and focused instead on the feeling of security and the feeling of freedom, because that was what I ultimately desired. That was what I ultimately wanted. And when I would try to do things like affirm for money or visualize a giant bank account, it didn't resonate. I had a difficult time really getting into it or getting behind that. So how I started to chip away was just focus on the feeling of freedom, of total and complete freedom. And how would that be? How would that feel? What would that look like? And a lot of times, ideas and scenes would come to me through that, when I allowed myself to entertain it, like in that way, in a broader way. A lot of times, inspiration in the form of scenes or inner conversations would come to me naturally. But that was the defining shift that made me go from constantly feeling that scarcity, constantly fearful of bills and not having enough, to actually enjoying a state of abundance. And genuinely, like, we live in a universe of abundance when we think about it. We just need to let ourselves think about that more than we do. But I do need to make another video, admittedly. Yeah. And I'm glad you like the series. That makes me happy. Hi, Missy. How to tell if we are just wanting and wishing or actually dwelling in that desired state? Good question. Um, yeah. If we're being observant and we're being honest with ourselves, we'll know. We'll know. We can tell the difference. We can feel the difference, because one feels very anxious, one feels very much like you're crossing your fingers and you're hoping, and there's still a lot of tension and doubt and disbelief, and one feels more relaxed. The other feels more secure. When you are genuinely dwelling in that desired state, you're no longer going to be having those conflictions, those fears, those doubts, and reacting to them. Even if you, like, when you're in the desired state, even if you do have a random intrusive thought, you're not going to have any reaction to it. There's not going to be anything there to, it's going to feel like nothing. It's going to feel absurd. Like, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thought. So we will know the difference if we are being honest with ourselves and we're being keenly aware of our reactions in our day to day. Hello, Yara. Good to see you. Hi, Missy. I keep getting the urge to drop my desire as if I planted the seed, but then something happens in the 3D, and then I have the urge to go back into the 4D again. Much love to you too, April. Yeah. What? I got stuck in this feedback loop too. If you're feeling the urge to drop your desire, then do so. Then do so. Again, we don't need to force it. If it feels like there's no need, if it feels redundant, we can drop it. If something does happen in the 3D, we revise it. Make sure that you're not overlooking revision. That may be what's contributing to what is going on here. Because every impression must become an expression, unless, of course, we revise it, or if it's replaced, with a opposite feeling. Essentially, we want to make sure that we're revising. There's a reason I go on about it all the time. Yeah. And then, to be clear, if you are ever feeling the need to go back into the 4D, then do that as well. It's really just, what are you feeling moved to do in this moment? Are you feeling moved to go back into imagination? Then I would do that. Are you feeling like that's pointless and there's no need? Then I would then I wouldn't do that. So it's really just going with what you feel you need right now. And revision. Hi, Missy. Sats really confuses me. On several occasions, I've managed to experience my desire as if it was real now, and they did manifest. But it happened despite me wavering during the day. Yeah, that can happen. We may see things out picture, even if we do have a waver. That's why I say, like, we don't need to be, complete and total conviction per se. It is helpful when we have that complete conviction, which is why we want to aspire to reach that place. But even if we do notice ourselves doubting here and there, it's the dominant state ultimately. It's the dominant state that manifests. But if you are still noticing a lot of internal confliction, like even after the thing comes to pass, you're still noticing a lot of doubt and wavering, that's indication that we want to continue to recondition our concept of self. We basically we want to remove those doubts. We want to remove whatever is causing us to be wobbly for the long term. I hope that makes sense. I've been seeing repeated numbers. Please explain about it. Um, so seeing things in the 3D repeatedly is in and of itself a manifestation. That's really it doesn't have any meaning beyond what meaning you give to it. So if I see, 111 everywhere, it's because, it's happened to me so many times that it's kind of just this belief. So I keep impressing that experience of seeing multiple numbers. I hope that makes sense. It is in and of itself a manifestation that doesn't have any inherent meaning other than any meaning that we might give to it. Um, but don't give your powers to second cause. Hello, Maggie. Hello. Hi, Missy. I'm not sure if my company will sponsor my visa or not for my summer internship. I found it hard to visualize. I don't know if I should visualize working there or seeing that they approve my. Sorry, it's part two. I find it hard to visualize. I don't know if I should visualize working there or seeing that they approve my student visa to work there for the summer. I feel like I'm a bit nervous about not getting my visa approved, so visualization doesn't feel super easy for me. Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like the anxiety around the circumstances are making it difficult for you to visualize. Um, if you're noticing that to be the case, you could, naturally try playing with different ways of imagining to see if something comes to you maybe a bit easier, a bit more natural, or I would say even more importantly, make sure that you're prioritizing a relaxed state first, getting yourself into a more relaxed, even drowsy state first. That's explicitly for things that we have a lot of anxiety around, things that we have resistance toward. If it doesn't feel believable and we're having difficulty in really getting into that feeling state, make sure that you're not trying to visualize while still feeling really tense or anxious. Um, this is something that we commonly do without even realizing it. But yeah, as far as which scene to visualize, I would say whichever one resonates best for you. If you find it might be more helpful to see yourself with the visa first, like imagine receiving your visa and allowing yourself to feel the relief that you would naturally feel from receiving your visa, then I would go with that. That will help remove some of the resistance around seeing yourself at the internship. Yeah. Oh, wait, what was sorry. Chat's jumping around a lot. Sorry, guys. Hang on. Hey, Missy, could you talk on your SP manifestation? Did you truly visualize all the details of the situation? Him tilting your head, saying exact words you imagine. I will always treasure you. Were there any details that were different? In that scene, no. No. God, it gives me chills. Everything was so detailed and vivid in that scene, which was specifically why I added that one to the video. There were several things that I was imagining around that time, and enjoying things such as the lullaby method. Um, isn't it wonderful? But in that scene, it, it was so vivid. It came down to every detail. Like, the children that ran by me on the pier, like feeling that the wind go by, and seeing the little girl's pink shirt, and like every detail was incredibly vivid. Yeah. So we are able and capable of reaching that degree of vividness. To be clear, I'm not saying that you have to see it that vividly in order to see something outpictured. And I don't want to stress anyone around that, but the details were incredibly vivid. Yes. Hi, Missy. I was able to restart communication with him, but he comes and goes. How to stop wavering? How to stop worrying that he leaves again? Thank you. And good evening from Europe. Oh, good evening to you too. Yeah, and yeah, I know hot and cold behavior is incredibly challenging naturally, um, because their hot and cold behavior is reflection of our own hot and cold behavior. Basically, us going back and forth. So, how do we stop wavering? That is the objective with this practice. The objective is to use our creative power, which is our imagination, to have an experience, to feel something so real to the point that your subconscious mind can't tell the difference, because it can't. It cannot tell the difference between something that happens in the 3D and something that happens in imagination that feels very real to us. To the subconscious mind, it's one and the same. So you're gonna naturally feel more confident and assured as you continue to put yourself in that mental state and really feel yourself in that loving and committed relationship. It is a practice though. I know. And I know. It's it can feel incredibly challenging. Focus first and foremost on you and how you want to feel. To the best of the ability, we have to practice taking our attention away from the 3D. That's why at least once a day, Neville even instructs to take a few minutes to shut everything out, shut your eyes, turn off everything, step away from whatever's going on, and just practice going within and really building up that world in our imagination. Yeah. Also, if there is a lot of worry that they're going to leave again, perhaps revising whatever incident may have happened to instill that fear and instill that belief. Yeah. I know you don't believe in astrological influences, but the night of March 14th, during the red moon lunar eclipse, I broke out in a big night sweat. I've rarely experienced a night sweat. Oh, now to be clear, if we have belief in astrology, then we'll see a lot of evidence to the fact, right? If I believe that the stars dictate my fate, then I'm gonna see proof of that, right? So astrology can be, I mean, it's fun, but I treat it like a game. But that is an interesting experience that happened. Um, like if we put a correlation to that, then we make it so. But this is where buying the pearl really does come in handy. Kelly, hello. When visualizing, how do you plan your scene and remember its exact details every time you want to visualize it? How many days are you meant to do it for? Good question. So I don't worry about all of the exact details with the conscious thinking mind. No. The details will be fleshed out subconsciously, naturally. Like, I will come up with an idea sometimes. I'll play with concepts of scenes that imply the outcome that I desire. I'll get an idea, basically an outline, if you will, but all of the specific nuances and details, I don't consciously do that. No. No, that's way too much work. That's way too much effort. And how many days are you meant to do it for? However many days until we reach the Sabbath, until we reach a point where it feels done and we'll naturally feel like we don't need to keep doing it anymore. It's almost like we'll get an aversion to it, like it just feels redundant. And once we reach that point, we can drop it. Yeah. Hey, Missy, is it a problem if after being in sats, I don't go to sleep, but instead wake up and continue my day? Mm-mm. No, no, not a problem at all. You don't have to necessarily take it with you into sleep. I mean, there's a lot of times where I'll do sats in the middle of the day or evening and then just get up and go about my day. Yeah. And you'll learn more about that when we go dive into feeling is the secret. Yeah. Let me see. Find my spot. Hey, Missy, do you think a beginner should have some sort of routine for manifesting? Like how many times to do sats? And how long after starting should you see results? At what point to check if I am wrong? Good questions. It is absolutely helpful to get ourselves into a new routine, adding exercises or techniques or, different ways of imagining whatever resonates most with us. Yeah. Yeah. Being consistent with that is going to be extremely helpful for sure. Um, how long will it take? That one's tricky to answer. That one is genuinely tricky to answer because everyone is going to be different. Everyone is going to be different. So I don't like putting time frames on it because if we get an idea that it should be X amount of time, we're just going to be anxious that whole time. So we need to remove that. The only thing that we need to remember with time and the time that it takes is that it is directly proportionate to the naturalness of it, how natural that scene feels, how natural your desire feels. Once it feels like the most natural and obvious thing in the world for you, it will happen like that. um, and how long until you should, what was it that you said? At what point to check if I am wrong? So, and this is why I recommend just being observant in our day to day, noting your mental diet, noting the thoughts, the reactions that you're having, because that's going to point you to what state you are dominantly occupying, where you are dwelling more often than not. Now, at first, you are likely going to find yourself in more of a fearful state than not. That's very common. We don't need to stress about that. But we should start to see a change in how we feel. We should start to notice that we're having less intrusive thoughts, that we are less reactive, that we're not as attached to that old story. Like we should be becoming more increasingly aware of that. If we are in fact reconditioning our self-concept, if we're doing this right, for lack of better words, although I hate putting it like that. So just be observant of your mental diet. And as you continue, you should notice more and more a difference in how you feel, a difference in how you react, the natural thoughts that come up for you. So if you've noticed that, say, for example, it's been months and months and nothing has changed internally, then I would be, reflecting on maybe taking a different approach or finding a way of imagining that will help me to resonate with my end state better, help me to more genuinely and naturally feel into that desired state. Hope that makes sense. Can you give me an example of how you handle and what you say when you are getting pummeled by negative thoughts, fears, visions? Good question. Yeah, and I have made a video talking about how to deal with negative thoughts. So if you were to go to the search bar on YouTube and type in Missy Renee, like how to stop negative thoughts, that should pop right up. Definitely give that one a watch if you haven't seen it, because I go a lot more into detail in that video. But basically, the biggest thing and the most counterintuitive, it feels counterintuitive, is to not fight it. Don't fight it. Don't fight the thoughts. Don't try to wrestle with them. Don't try to, you know, power through, because those subconscious thoughts are going to feel very strong. And if we continue to fixate on them and give attention to it, we're just going to notice that those thoughts are strengthened and probably feeling them more intensely. So, one thing that we practice is, through the observation, we're going to start being more aware of our thoughts, but as separate from us, because we're not our thoughts. So on this journey, you're going to find yourself naturally less susceptible to those negative thoughts, because you're no longer going to be as attached to them, because you know that you are aware of this thought, but you don't have to give it meaning. It doesn't have to be anything. It's literally just a thought, and the thoughts themselves do not hold power. And that's probably the most important thing to remember and remind ourselves. The thoughts themselves do not have power. There is only one power in this entire existence, and that is I am. That is the observer of the thoughts. That is the operant power. So, as you remind yourself, as you just observe without trying to fight it, and really take advantage of the moments when you are feeling better, when you are feeling more relaxed or not as anxious, that's when we really want to go all into the imaginal acts and feeling state. So, with all of that, like, you will find yourself naturally becoming more and more detached and not as effective by any intrusive thoughts. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Oop. All right, going back to my spot. What's the matter? What's the matter, old lady? Why are you crying? My cat's yelling at me. I don't know. What? What do you need? God. Hang on, sweetheart. Sorry, guys. All right, where's my spot? Don't yell at me. Hi, Missy. Is it okay not to want my person sometimes and feel absolutely content about it? I mean, yeah, yeah. If you need a moment to feel your feeling, yeah. We just want to make sure that w- when when you feel more relaxed or ready to direct back to the state of the wish fulfilled, to do so, and just make sure to revise any of those kinds of moments that come up. Hmm. Yeah. We're gonna have moments of fluctuation, especially at first. Our feelings are gonna fluctuate in the day to day. That's normal. Yeah. Hi, Missy. I'm confused. Isn't it logical that manifesting something specific is manifesting the how? I'd like to be wealthy, but via writing. Shouldn't I manifest wealth instead of the career? Um, no, I wouldn't say necessarily. I see what you're saying there, but um, it sounds like the specific desire is to be abundant through your writing, and taking it that you have a passion for writing, or that's something that you enjoy doing. That is a means and ways. I guess the natural byproduct of being a successful writer is being abundant, being wealthy. If you are a very successful writer, that's probably would come with the experience, right? So in that case, if that is what you desire to experience, then you can absolutely be specific in that regard. And that goes for anything. If there's a specific business venture, if there's something that you're really passionate about and you desire to, make that your means of abundance or way that that you can sustain yourself through that, then absolutely do that, right? Um, I, I would say in the case of thinking that we need to do something in order to get wealth is where we'd be forcing the how. So a common example is, you know, assuming that I would need to win the lottery in order to obtain a large sum of money very quickly. And so that, because I think that that's my only shot, I try to, force that scene or go with that. Um, and we don't have to take that approach. That's more of a messing with the how. Now, if you desire the experience of winning the lottery, if that's something that feels good to you, if that's something that feels enjoyable to you, then by all means. But again, it's more about if we're using it as like a crutch or thinking that this is the only ways and means that I can make money, I would avoid taking that approach. I hope I'm making sense. But if you genuinely desire to, become abundant through your writings and being a successful writer, I think that that's just the natural byproduct is, if you're successful with it, you will make good money. Yeah. All right. I lost my spot. Oh, yeah. Oh, shoot. I missed quite a few questions. Sorry. Hi, Missy. I struggle to maintain the state. I feel good when I meditate, but I fall back into the undesired state. What is your advice? Thank you so much. You're not alone in this. I would say virtually everybody, especially when starting out, falls in and out of that desired state, sometimes often. And it's often because on the subconscious level, we're naturally moved and gravitating to our dominant state of consciousness. So if we do move out of our dominant state of consciousness, we're on a subconscious level just wired to gravitate back. It's almost you can almost think of the ego as like a this well-regulated machine that is operating on, everywhere from the conscious to the deep subconscious levels of the mind, and it's keeping a homeostasis. It's trying to maintain that normal and natural state for you, whatever that looks like. So if it's your old undesirable state, you might find yourself falling back into that. That's where the persistence aspect to this practice comes in. Where if you fall out of that desired state, we have to direct ourselves back and we have to continue to go back to that until it starts to just become your new normal. And it will become your new normal, but we have to we have to do everything we can to avoid frustration or giving up, because at first, yes, we depending on what we are trying to, what our aim is, what our the pre-existing beliefs and assumptions that we have. There's a variety of factors going into this that may make it more difficult to naturally sustain that new state at first. It does get easier as it becomes more natural to you. How do I make visualization more vivid? Do you have any advice to help? Thanks, Missy. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, there's some things that we can practice. That there are like imagination exercises or visualization exercises that we could practice in our day to day to strengthen the imaginal senses, right? The sight, sound, taste, touch, all of that. Yeah, there's some things that we can do. One thing that I would often practice with is like just taking a random object and just observing, baby, you're okay. And just sorry, taking a random object, it could be anything, something that will fit in your hand, and just observing as much detail, like gathering as much detail with your senses, like what it feels like, if there's any smell to it, um, getting as much of the visual representation, and then setting it down, closing your eyes, and just doing your best to try to replicate that with as many details as possible. It is going to take a little bit of practice, naturally, but that's one thing that you can do. Another thing is to really practice with getting into sats and getting into the hypnagogic state. And I mentioned, I think it might have been the last live. I forget where I mentioned, but I am also working on a series specifically surrounding the hypnagogic state, and trying to do my most thorough breakdown yet of how to know we're in it, some tips and things that we can do to help ourselves get there. Because what you're going to find is that when in that hypnagogic state, things are going to feel very, very vivid naturally. So definitely keep eyes out for updates on that series. I'm working on it. All right. Hi, Missy. How do we set boundaries and not allow others to take advantage of us or hurt us, yet follow the law knowing they have no free will? Good question. Um, and this is a really good question, actually. So, the first thing that I would stress is really focusing on having those boundaries set in your mind, as in, don't entertain anyone going outside of those boundaries. Only see others as respecting you, as respecting those boundaries. Um, that being the biggest one. What you are imagining, what you're allowing yourself to feel. So not giving too much time and rumination on the ways that people are doing wrong by us or crossing those boundaries. Um, to be abundantly clear, that does not mean that we subject ourselves to any bullshit in the 3D. So if somebody crosses a boundary in the 3D, you have every right in the world to pull back, to remove yourself, to say, nope, that's not acceptable. And then I would also be sure to revise it, but that is the approach that I would take. Because just because everyone is you pushed out does not mean that we just need to accept everything that people do. Like if something is hurtful and upsetting, we don't just want to continue to subject ourselves to that. Not at all. Not at all. We remove the attention, we remove whatever it is, and then we revise. But the biggest and most important thing is having those boundaries set in here and seeing that other people always. Oh, did I freeze? I think I froze. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Hello, what do you think of robotic affirmations? This is a good question. I do get this question often, but it's an important one because I understand that robotic affirmations are probably the most popular techniques that are taught in this community. I'm not always certain why that is, because it's not what Neville taught, but you know, to each their own. If I will say that if robotic affirmations are helpful for you, if they help you to capture the mood, capture the feeling of that wish fulfilled, um, help you to feel better, then by all means, there are plenty of people that have had success with them. Technically, I have seen success with it. Um, Not lasting success, but I have seen the 3D change from robotic affirming. So, uh, but is it something that I personally use and apply? No, no. For myself, because I can only speak for myself, there are much more effective ways of using our imagination than robotic affirming. Because feeling is truly the secret here. It is the feeling that we're after, the feeling of realness, the feeling of naturalness, like what it would genuinely feel and be like if you were now in an alternate universe, a completely different self concept, and just entertaining that. A lot of times we're using robotic affirming to distract yourself from negative thoughts, which is totally fine to do if it is helpful for you. Um, but at the end of the day, we also want to make sure that we are utilizing something that is helping us to feel into that new state. Yeah. Hi, Missy. I've been manifesting my SP for a while. I've done many techniques, but now I've reached a point where I no longer want to do them, nor do I really care a whole lot anymore. Is that bad? Not inherently, no. Mm-mm. I mean, it most importantly is how does it feel? Like, does it feel like we're kind of giving up? Does it feel like we're burned out? Does it feel like we're frustrated? Or do we feel calm, neutral, just like there's no need to do it anymore? Because it very well what you're describing could be the Sabbath. It's hard to, say for sure based on how you described it, but the Sabbath is going to feel like there's no point in doing techniques anymore. Like we're going to feel naturally just averse to the idea of doing techniques. It's akin to when we're really, really hungry and then we, indulge in a big meal and then we're stuffed, we're full. We couldn't take another bite if we wanted to. So that's kind of one of the analogies I try to use to explain it. It doesn't feel bad. It's not a bad thing because our objective is ultimately to get to a state where we're no longer fixated on trying to manifest them, right? Yeah. Oh, much love to you, Yara. Much love to you. Also, going through phases of hit and miss manifesting, big or small, doesn't make a difference. I'm struggling to figure out what's bridging the gap. What do you recommend? Self concept, revision, etc. Um, Going through the phase of hit and miss. So, so noticing inconsistencies or partial manifestations, that is usually the result of us directing our attention back to the 3D. Usually when we see something out picture part way or seemingly it starts unfolding, but then stops or something happens, it's because we're than turning our attention to the 3D and fixating on the 3D, which we do not want to do. Yeah. We want to continue to imagine and put ourselves in that end state either until we are completely in the Sabbath and there is zero desire to imagine it anymore because it's done, or until it is fully outpictured. And even that, even when it is fully outpictured, if we're noticing double-mindedness, if we're noticing anything at all that is in contrast with our desire, then I would still recommend going to the end until it feels done for you and until it feels like the most natural thing in the world for you. We get very easily distracted by the 3D. Yeah. Is it okay to daydream about something you don't want but makes you feel good? Sometimes I decorate my friends' houses for them in my mind, but I don't want to do it for real. Oh, that is an excellent question. I mean, I'm always going to say, like, be mindful of what you are entertaining. Uh, we do want to be incredibly mindful about that because that is how seeds are planted. But I mean, if it feels good and enjoyable, that's ultimately what we're after here. We want to feel good. We want to feel better. That is ultimately the desire, no matter what the 3D object of desire looks like. It's to feel better. That said, we do want to be just mindful what we give our focus and attention to. More than likely, we will see outpictured. Like we will see it outpictured. Hi, Missy. Just like last week, I have two questions today. Number one, is it normal to have periods of anxiety/uneasiness while establishing a new state? Yes. Yes, this is totally normal. Totally normal. We are, as humans, on a subconscious level, very averse to change, even if it's a desired change, even if it's something that we want to see or have differently. There's that part of us that is just naturally averse to change. So we may notice that it feels a bit uncomfortable, maybe even anxious sometimes. That is completely normal. Yeah, and it will subside. Where was question two? Where was question two? Oh, shit, the chat just japped again. Oh no. Okay, there it is. Number two, is it normal to encounter blips or brief instances of the old story showing up again while creating the new story? Yep, totally normal. Totally normal. Yeah, yeah. Those are just old impressions bearing fruit now, basically. If you think of subconscious impression in the analogy of planting a seed in the ground, well, if we plant that seed and the soil has been ripe for it, like the mindset has been perfect for it, we're going to see it outpictured. So it's not at all uncommon on this journey to have things come up from the old story while we're, reconditioning that self-concept and directing our attention to the new. Yeah, just don't let yourself get swayed too far off base if that happens. Oh, did I put the wrong date? Uh-huh. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll make sure to update that. Yeah, it's definitely not January 27th, 2024. That's really weird. I will make sure that that gets updated. If I imagine living in a house in New York, but I do not know the house, how to do it? Good question. You don't have to know every detail of the house, although you can start to, form an idea in your mind of what that looks like. If you want to live in a house or like a condo in Manhattan or Brooklyn or How many bedrooms would it have? What amenities it would have? Like, allow yourself to play with the idea of it. A lot of times, ideas will come to you naturally the more that you keep your focus there. Um, but an example of a scene that you could use would be, going to a post office for a change of address form, and seeing New York on the address form, or telling friends and family about your move. You're unpacking in your new place and everything's been going amazing and you're in love with your new house, things like that. But you don't have to have every specific detail down to every nook and cranny in order to imagine that outcome, in order to put yourself in that state. But feel free to let yourself run wild if there are ideas of what you want. That's my spot. Bye, Yara. Have a good night. I know it is super late where you are. Thank you so much for being here. Hi, Missy. I can truly say I've never felt better and been going to the end. Something has shifted. Part of me fears I'll fall back into fear and ego backlash. Am I not really in the end if I feel this? Mm, mm. Overall, you're feeling better though, Kelly? That's what we want to see. I mean, there may be a fear lingering somewhere in the back of the mind, but as long as it's not like overbearing or powerful or really knocking you off kilter, um, because as when that shift occurs, trust that it's only going to get easier from there. Trust that it's only going to be, improving in your favor from that point. I know that there might be a little bit of apprehension. That is normal. Go to the end still anyways. Continue to just fill your consciousness with the outcome that you want, regardless. If that fear comes in, observe it, but don't give any attention to it. Don't give any meaning to it. It's just a thought. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that that you're feeling better. Good. Let me see here. The chat is jumping all over the place. I am so sorry. I'm probably completely out of order now. I'm sorry, guys. I try. I try. Let me see. Let me see. Is the idea sense is the idea slash sense slash assumption of deserving necessary for the feeling or assumption of having? Is the idea of deserving necessary for a feeling or assumption of having? Um, I, I wouldn't say it's necessary. I mean, I'm always going to be an advocate for, having the best self-esteem that we possibly can. To feel genuinely deserving and worthy, I think are important for obvious reasons. There's so much benefit that we're going to get from that. There's so much life satisfaction we're going to get from that. Um, but to say, is it necessary? I don't know if I'd go that far. It all that's really required is the assumption that you are already the person who has or is whatever you desire. Yeah. Hello, Shannon. Hello, good to see you. What was, sorry, guys. I think there was a lot of questions that got skipped, and I am so sorry about that. Hi, Missy. When you say imagination looks real in a relaxed state, is that you doing it consciously or just your mind filling in the blanks? Um, just my mind filling in the blanks. The details of when I am going into sats, when I have a scene, um, I don't consciously flesh out all of the details. No, no, no. That's so much work. That is so much work. That will flesh out naturally. It's very similar to when we're in a dream, like all the details are fleshed out, but we didn't consciously do any of that, right? I guess the biggest difference here is that you are conscious of the dream and you're able to direct your attention, but you're not trying to make all the details happen. And I'll be going more into this in that series that I mentioned about SATs. While doing sats or meditation, is feeling over the moon or feeling too emotional necessary? Nope. It's not all about emotion. Not about emotion. Because it's going to depend on the scene, honestly. Um, the the aim with sats is the feeling of realness, the feeling of naturalness. That's why Neville would describe bringing in the tones of reality, like your imaginal senses, sight, smell, taste, touch, sound, that like we're capturing the realness of the scene. It's not about the emotion. Emotions can happen because an emotion is a subconscious response to a stimuli, to a circumstance. Like something happens, and then we have an emotional response to it. So, just like when that happens in the 3D, that can happen in SATs because, again, it feels very real. You're likely going to notice the same kind of responses. So you may get very elated or joyful or tear up in happiness, um, if the scene warrants that. But if you're just imagining a scene where you and your person are on the couch hanging out, it's your 1 year anniversary, you're fiddling with your wedding ring, um, it you know that may just feel more warm and fuzzy and calm and content versus elated, right? So again, it depends on the scene, but the emotions are the response to stimuli, just like how we experience it out here. We don't need to force the feeling, or I'm sorry, the emotion. Do not try to force the emotion because emotions, strong emotions cannot be forced through conscious willpower. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Hello, I will admit that I've been in the continuous state of waiting. Did my story need more than just one email? Um, so if you feel like you need to, as far as sending over your story, like if you need to, fill out context that you feel is important, you can do that, absolutely. But feeling in the state of waiting is normal, is normal. And that happens because of how we are approaching this. We're we're thinking in terms of trying to get something to happen in the future. We do sats or attempt sats, affirmations, in the hopes that it's going to bring us the desire someday. Like instead, we want to hold the perception of it's happening right now as I am imagining it, and like feel into the realness of the here and now moment. Like you are, in you know in a different place in a different time, but it's right here right now. I know it's confusing, but if we're constantly approaching this like we're trying to make something happen in the future, we're going to perpetually get stuck in a state of waiting. So I'll definitely make sure to check out what you sent over, and we can continue to go from there. But if you catch yourself in a state of waiting, that is feedback that in that moment, at least in this now moment, I'm not in the state that I want to be in. So I want to practice directing my attention back to that desired state instead. So the person who manifests is one that is considered crazy by the average human. You got to go crazy, I guess. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Yes, there are some people that think manifesting is crazy, but all that we're asked to do is not entertain the things that we don't want, because we're always imagining, we're always occupying a state. This is something we're never not doing. So it's just being more conscious and deliberate about what you are giving your attention and focus to versus being on the old autopilot from the old state. Mhm. I love seeing the engagement going on. You guys going back and forth with each other. You are incredibly helpful with one another, and I love to see it. I love to see it. What can help if you are manifesting something since years and in the 3D doesn't seem any closer? What you're describing sounds like there's still a lot of attachment and looking for 3D confirmation, which is admittedly what keeps us stuck, because looking for confirmation, being aware of not having it is perpetuating more of a state of not having it. It sounds like a paradox, I know, but what can help is, number one, we have to practice taking our focus off the 3D and instead really emphasizing the point of the imagination and how you are feeling in your imagination. Not for the express purpose of trying to change the 3D, but to change how you feel. Like that has to be the objective here, because that is ultimately how things change. It's everything is reflection from you, of you. So if we're constantly looking for that change before we've made that internal change, like we can't expect that. That doesn't make sense. Um, I would play around with different ways of imagining. Help to find if anything may resonate more with you. So if you have been using the same technique and perhaps it's not inducing the feeling that you desire, if it's not helping you induce and elicit that response that you want, play around with other ways. Try to incorporate more of your imaginal senses. Practice making sure that you're getting into a nice and relaxed state first. Just some ideas that we can play around with. But the biggest thing here, no matter what, is we gotta practice taking our attention off the 3D. That is what is perpetuating the waiting game. Hi, Missy. As a child, I always felt that things I passively imagined came to fruition in the 3D, but I could never attach a sort of understanding to it. Is manifesting more prevalent at a young age? I would I would say that when we are younger, we have much better access to our creative imagination and our ability to more passively imagine. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like before we've really been thoroughly conditioned, you know, by our environment and the people around us, before we've been instilled with all of these logic and reason, all of that, it naturally felt so much easier to imagine things when we were younger. That can feel really difficult now. So, but like you said, a lot of times we never really made the connection there or understood that. But I also recall that, yeah, it was much easier for me to imagine something passively when I was a kid, and it would happen. So, yeah, yeah. But that's not to say that just because we're adults now that it's going to be harder or that it's not possible or anything like that. Like, don't want to get that twisted. All right, I got time for maybe one or two more. Yes, I am vaping, by the way. I am vaping. This I taste like delicious candy. Missy, I tested the law and said I wanted to see a yellow convertible vehicle. I visualized it and let it go. After 3 weeks, I haven't stopped seeing yellow convertibles drive by or park by. I haven't stopped seeing. So you have seen a lot of yellow vehicles? Is that what you're saying? Or you haven't? I visualized and let it go after 3 weeks. I haven't stopped seeing yellow. I'm not sure if you meant that you have seen a bunch or that you haven't. My apologies. Um, but yeah, when we let it go, when we drop it, that's when we see it. That's when we see it. Yes, yes, Ados. Notice the 3D, but don't give it attention. Don't give meaning to it. Obviously, we have physical senses that are gonna pick up cues from our 3D. That's that's non-avoidable. But we don't have to give it meaning. We don't have to just because something is in the 3D currently, um, does not mean that it is going to continue to be a certain way. Everything in the 3D right now is subject to change. And then that's really what ignoring your 3D is about. It's not about literally trying to ignore it. It's that everything is subject to change. So we don't like we become less attached to the 3D and more specifically the meaning that we give to our 3D circumstances. If you're feeling indifference, that very well could be the Sabbath. Yeah. The Sabbath feels very calm. It feels very much just like there's no need to do anything. We're not thinking about it constantly anymore. We're not freaking out about anything. It's just kind of like, okay, yeah. Mhm. A lot of questions today about the Sabbath. And I have made a video talking about the Sabbath. Uh, if you type in the search bar, Missy Renee Sabbath, that should pop right up. Um, the most important thing to, I guess, keep in mind, the Sabbath is the period of rest. Basically, it's when it's done. It feels done. What we've imagined has been impressed. It's that seed is planted, and we're no longer feeling any need or urge or desire to continue to imagine or do any techniques. It just feels done. And at that point, we drop it. We go about our day. We, can turn our attention maybe to something else that we desire, uh, but we're not fixated anymore on it. So we want to continue to imagine and go to the end until the Sabbath is reached, until we naturally feel that fulfillment, satisfaction, and like we can drop it because it's done. Yeah, definitely check out the video that I made talking more about that. Um, Kitties. Where are the kitties? So I do have new baby kittens coming probably tomorrow, sometime early this next week. So for the next live, you will likely we'll have some friends with us. For those who may not know, I am an animal foster. I foster kittens. Got a nursery set up in that room right behind me there. So there will be babies. It is kitten season, y'all. So that is coming back. And on that note, I'm so sorry. I got so lost out of order today. So I know there may be some of you that I missed, and I do sincerely apologize for that. But I do also need to wrap up. I'm noticing the time. I want to thank each and every single one of you for being here. It is always a pleasure. Amazing questions, as always. If I didn't get to your question, again, I'm so sorry, but do remember I am live every Sunday. So I do hope you join me next week. And in the meantime, do take care of yourself. Keep eyes out for notifications and updates of new content. Have a lovely rest of the weekend, y'all. Take care. Until next time.